All right, welcome back to the Purpose Driven Mom Summit. I'm here with Elizabeth Stapleton, and we're talking all about blogging and how you can add that into your business, into your goals, into your mom life to help give you something that brings in some income, fulfills that passion project, and more. So, Liz, thanks for being a part of the summit.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I want to hear about the topic, and we're going to talk all about blogging. Before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you? And I always love to hear, because we have so many moms who are like starting an entrepreneurial journey. So I love like the Cliff Notes version, because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
see it and they're like, oh, you've been doing this for so long. But we know that it starts here, right? So if you could tell us just a little bit about your journey in your business.
Yeah, so I late one night, July 2014, I kept seeing like all these, how to make money blogging posts or whatever, and like set up your blog in 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I was like, well, now what?
Mhm.
Because really those walk you through getting their affiliate commission for Bluehost, and then they leave you high and dry, which I don't do that. I'm very against that now. But I had zero clue what I was doing. I did not like launch with content. I did not, it was a personal finance site that, I kid you not, I named Friday Night Shenanigans, which makes no sense.
Nope.
And it took me 2 years before I rebranded and changed the name. Okay. So like if I can do it, anyone can. And so now I have like 4 sites, and I've been, full-time self-employed since like 2017. So yeah, like it's truly, if I can do it, anyone can. It once took me 6 months to figure out how to make a drop-down menu.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't clear.
The struggle is real. And I actually like that you start with that, because I think there is a lot of stuff out there that like leaves you very like, oh, cool, right? Very like, now what am I supposed to do? Like, where's my steps to step? And I know that there's a lot of moms who see this blogging world and they're like, I want to do this, but like, I don't even know where to get started. And today in our session, obviously we're not going to be able to cover everything, but we're hoping that if you're watching, you're leaving with some more steps than you already had. Before we jump into kind of some action steps and the nitty gritty, why do you think blogging is something that people could add into their business? Because we hear the thing like, no one's blogging anymore, blogging's dead. We know that's not facts, right? So what do you think about that?
I think, the saying is still true. Content is king, right? Like content is constantly being produced. You see news articles, you see roundups, you see listicles, you see like that can all technically be blogging if you really want to look at it. Blogging is a great way to do a lot of things, right? It's a great way to market. If you have like a business or something, your blog could be filled with case studies. It's a great way to earn some passive income if you want to earn with display ads and with, affiliate marketing, because you can draw people in with search engine optimization. It's a great way to just build your audience and nurture people, because when they see something they can relate to, right, they'll share it too, right? Like that's a whole nother thing. Not every blog post has to be SEO. Like you never know where those other blog posts will take you. I once wrote a post that like it was sitting in my drafts for like a year. I like had just typed it up, it was in my head, and then I finally I was like, I should publish this, and I went and I published it. And it wasn't SEO, it wasn't anything. And someone reached out to me and was like, can we put this in our digital magazine? And I ended up with like 2,000 visitors from it, right? Like you never know. My very first guest post ended up in someone's book. Like you just don't know. Like, so don't be like, oh, I hate writing technical blog posts. Like you don't have to. Depending on what your goal is going to really drive the content you create. And if you have a hard time thinking of it as like blog articles, make it a video and then use like AI to help you turn it into written content. Like there's so many ways to do it now.
I like that you said that, because I think we think things need to be very one size fits all. Like we hear, and a lot of us who are getting newer people, I'm sure you're hearing the term SEO, and sometimes I find that I'm a systems person, but I sometimes find the systems of things can take the fun out of things for me. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to do it at all, right? So I'm glad that you brought up like, choose your own adventure, have a strategy, but also like you can pick, and it should be aligned with your goals. So we're talking to people who either maybe they've thought about starting a blog or they already have one, but they don't know where to go with it. If we're in that beginner stage, like how do we decide how to even set goals around this?
So I think you want to first look at, what do you want your blog to accomplish, right? Are you looking for it to give you a full-time income? Like you want to leave your job, have a more flexible lifestyle. Okay. If that's the case, how quickly do you want to do that? Because that's going to drive what kind of ways you monetize. If you want to be gone in 6 months, you're probably going to be going the service route, some sort of virtual service. In which case you're still going to be somewhat trading time for money. You just have more control over who you work with and what your rates are. If you are wanting to just build passive income and eventually like have it support you, you can take a longer road. And then it's like, okay, well, let me learn how to write good content and just write and publish it, guys. So here's the thing. When you're starting out, you will be the most nervous to hit publish. Like that, I remember hitting publish and being like, oh my God. But the reality is those are like the least viewed posts. Like no one's there yet. So hit publish. And if you're not cringing at what you wrote a year ago, you're not getting better. You need to hit publish and get better. And you can go back and update it when you're better. Like you just have to do it. You will learn so much faster by taking action, by publishing the blog post and being like, you know what, maybe I don't like writing this way. Maybe I want to try a different way. Maybe I want to try video. Maybe I want to try audio. Like just try new things. If you're not like on a tight deadline, try new things to figure out what you like most. The other thing I want to say is be wary of, you will see lots of people being like, I made $30,000 this month, or, I'm a Pinterest manager and I made this much or whatever. And this is a mistake I made. So I always like to like tell people focus on what you want your life to look like, because I chased after those other versions of success and I made that money, but I didn't like what I was doing, and so then I'm kind of back at square one. So know what you want your life to look like. If you want it to be more passive so that, hey, when the kid's sick, you can not stress about it, or when they're off for summer, you're just hanging out. Like last summer, I did so many bike rides and I did so many perler beads, and it was so much fun to just hang out with the kids. And, I got up a little early and did a couple hours of work before the start of the day, but that was it. And it was really nice, So if you want your life to look like that, you need to have stuff that's going to make you money without you actively doing it. That's less service-based. That might be digital products. That might be affiliate marketing. That might be display ads. That might be sponsored content, which is a little bit of a time for money, but not quite, depending on how you do it. So just kind of knowing what you want your life to look like and how you want your blog to support it. Because a lot of people will start blogging and it takes over their life, which is like the opposite of what you want it to do.
That is 100% like what I always teach, is that I feel like out there, the method is all like fit your life into your business. And it's not. Like, we should be fitting our business into our lives. Like, that is the point. And yes, don't get me wrong that there's not like a period of sprinting or hard.
There's seasons of hustle.
Yes, there's all of that. But if your longevity of it is this constant sprint, is it worth it? So I just love that you said that, because I think we can each have our own goals, and it's hard to put the blinders on when you're like, I'm seeing this person who's blogging about homeschool and that's what I want to do, and they're making all this money, but know that it's your race that you have to run. So let's talk about that real quick. I wasn't planning on it, but that imposter syndrome, because of the fact that there are a lot of blogs out there, there's a lot of people doing things. One of the things I hear from the moms I work with is like, but this person's already doing it and they're super successful. Why would someone want to hear from me? Like, I couldn't do that. They're already there. So can we talk a little bit about the imposter syndrome behind like putting that blog out there on your site?
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. They may be talking about the same thing, but they're not you, right? Like everyone's experiences is unique. And someone might share some aspects of it, right? But maybe their kids are older. And you're talking about homeschooling younger kids, or you have younger kids that aren't in school yet and you're homeschooling the older kids, and how are you balancing it? Like there's usually some difference. You're usually not the exact same scenario. So like your point of view matters, and share that, and people will connect with it if you're just, I think, open and honest. And that's really like, that's so key to blogging, is open and honest. That's true whether it's the content, whether it's the legal policies, whether it's just be open and transparent. Yes, it's possible even if you choose to blog anonymously. You don't have to like share who you are, but you can share about you. So just like your perspective is going to be different. It's going to be unique. They may be like, are homesteading too while they homeschool, and you're like, I ain't got time to deal with chickens, right? Like you never know. There's going to be some difference. So don't be afraid to put yourself and your ideas out there. You're going to find an audience. There's, if it means it's popular for one person, it can be popular for you. Like a rising tide raises all ships. It's not a competition. So yeah.
100%. And I wasn't going to pivot there, but because you are kind of like a legal queen, I figured we'll pivot there while we're there of just some of
Okay.
the beginning stuff because we have these newbies who are like, I want to get on. Can I ask you like some of the legal stuff, like what is something if I'm just getting started, it's my blog, like the number one thing you notice people like don't do that you could be like, no, do this, just get this done right away. And I think it'll set you up for success long term.
Sure. And I will say, guys, I have a background as an attorney. I'm not practicing currently, but I do have a site where I focus on this, which is why, like, just to show my expertise on that. Privacy policy. You need a good privacy policy. And if you are dirt broke, you can't buy a template from an attorney. WordPress actually gives you like a rough draft kind of one, which is a good place to start. It's not perfect, but it's something. You need a privacy policy because if you're like, well, I'm not starting an email list. Well, are you going to track your data? Like, are you going to use Google Analytics? Are you going to use like any sort of cookie-based plugin? Like, then you need a privacy policy. Just trust that you need it, okay?
Yeah.
And it'll become even more needed as you do things like start an email list and things like that, which you should start from the beginning, by the way. Learn that the hard way. So yeah, like you definitely need a privacy policy, and depending on what you're doing, disclosures and disclaimers. So disclosures, especially if you're doing any sort of affiliate marketing, because the FTC regulates that. And if you're not properly disclosing your affiliate links, you're putting that income at risk. And if you're working so hard to get that income, you don't want to put it at risk. And then like disclaimers, especially if you're in like a health niche, finance, anything like that. And it's going to be, so for like my legal site, right? I'm like, hey, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer.
Yeah.
Right? Like disclaimer. Or if you're in the finance, like, hey, this is my experience. I'm not licensed, right? Like this is informational, educational purposes only. Like, don't come and blame me if you try something and it doesn't work. So those types of things is basically the equivalent of it. Down the road, you're going to be looking at potentially terms and conditions, and some other things, but definitely privacy policy and potential disclosures and disclaimers, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for letting us take a little pivot there because I feel like another hiccup I hear from people is it feels like too formal. Like if who am I to start a business? Who am I to start a blog? I don't know all these things. And I think a lot of the legal stuff in particular is super like up here for everybody and it doesn't need to be, right? Like in the most basics of.
Yeah. And you can like truly. So funny story, when I was in law school, I was a law clerk. I worked at a law firm. My boss was like, here's our client. You need to register their business. That's it. I should have figured it out. Like no one showed me. I messed it up like 4 times before I got it right. And this like client was being charged like $80 an hour for my work of like me not having a clip. So like, yes, lawyers like know what they're doing. Law clerks don't. But just like you could do it. You don't have to necessarily, like you can establish an LLC if that's what you need to do. You can file for a business license if that's what you need to do. Those are fairly simple things. If you're getting more complicated and setting up a partnership, yes, get a lawyer. Like don't try to do that on your own. But like it's possible. It's not overly difficult. Secretary of State website for where you live.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I think that's one of the hiccups. Like people will get started and I get on a lot of calls with the moms in my group and like they get to the point where they're like, do I need an LLC? I have to open a business. I don't know what to, and then they just panic. And then it's like, I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. And I think when we're stepping into something where we're now becoming the expert, there's so much fear around that of doing it wrong. So thank you for just like pausing to be like, simple, we can do it. And then kind of move forward. I want to talk about some tips for consistency because you had mentioned before, like just keep writing. And I agree. I think it's one of those like, man, I look back at, oh man, in the beginning of my site, just a mess, right? I've got recipes. I can't cook for nothing, right? But there's recipes. We got some craft round, like it's
yeah, awful. I had like some DIY stuff. Yeah,
not absolutely. Me at all. I look back now and I'm like, oh wow, what were we doing? But what I was doing was I was getting content out there, right? Like I was like, let me just
consistently publishing.
Yes, throw the spaghetti at a wall. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of creating some consistent routines because I always say to people, consistency looks like what you decide. Like for my podcast, for example, we used to do 1 episode a week, then we went to 2, now we're back down to 1. You could do 1 episode a month. Like your consistent is defined by your consistent. So I want to talk to the people out there that are thinking of starting like, and a question I get, how often should I be publishing? What should I do? What advice do you have?
So really good point. Consistent is not the same as constant,
Mm.
right? So being consistent. And I will also say, if anyone like wants, if you're like so in awe of a blogger, go look at the website, the Wayback Machine, and put in their website and see what it looked like at the beginning. And you'll be like, okay, I can do this. So just real quick, like I think it's so important to see where you're like the people you're in awe started, because it'll make you feel better. But so as far as being consistent, like it takes organization and it takes assessing that system and organization. I know you're like systems batching queen. But so for example, I actually like my systems went off the rails this last year. Like I did fine. My digital product sales did good, but I like did not publish content. And I was like, I don't like that, you know? So now I'm reassessing, okay, what happened with my system that it stopped working? What did I change that didn't work? You know, because you got to experiment. Sometimes things change, you need to adjust. And so looking at, okay, well, before when I was being consistent, even with multiple sites, it's because I was like leapfrog batching them. And I stopped doing that. I need to get back to that. Right. So it's a matter of figuring out kind of what works for you. And I think looking at your life and anticipating how far ahead you need to be. Like looking at your calendar and figuring that out. Like this summit is actually taking place. It is spring break with my niece and nephew. And I was like, I don't know what time I'm gonna be able to get on. We'll figure it out when it gets closer. But you know, I was like, yeah, I want to participate, just so you know.
Yeah.
Our kids are home this week. So just knowing kind of ahead of time what's going on and being like, oh yeah, I'm not going to get my normal amount of work done that week. What do I need to get done ahead of time? So really, it's again, factoring in your life and having your business support it and not the other way around. Not trying to be like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get work done when there's a kid sick? Or, you know, it's okay, kid's sick. Well, that's going to have to wait. And that's okay, because it doesn't need to be done right this second.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think being consistent, planning ahead, you know, and just always trying to be ahead. That is honestly the people that fall off the bandwagon on consistency. It's because they haven't got worked ahead. It's because there's a blog post due tomorrow or due tomorrow in their consistent schedule mind. And it, you know, life happens, you're exhausted, you can't think of anything.
100%. This is why when I teach like the seasonal planning, it's exactly this. It's, you know, and this is great real time. We're just talking, I've been sick for like 3 weeks. I'm super behind on stuff. I'm like trying to figure out how to catch up, but I'm not as panicked as I would have been if I was pre-systems Cara, right? Like I'm always kind of looking quarterly, like I'm already starting to look at like the summer and saying, I know we want to take these weeks off in the summer. What do I need to do? And I think the other thing becomes, if I can't, like whatever, everything goes off the rails, I can't, am I okay with my good enough being like, maybe we go down from 2 episodes to 1 or 1 to 2, like just changing it and allowing
every other week.
Yes. And allowing that. And that's what happened. Honestly, I was saying I got really sick last year. We got really behind. The podcast used to be 2 times a week. And then I had a conversation with my editor and I was like, I think we just need to go to 1 a week because like I'm not able to do this. And it's been so freeing for me because I'm like, oh, well, look, I changed consistency. Downloads are fine. The business didn't burn down. Like we're okay. And so I think in the beginning, it's a mix of get it out there imperfectly, create the systems, and then also like plan ahead, knowing like something's gonna happen. And then there are those fixed things, spring break, summer, like you know that they're coming. So it's asking yourself, like, well, how can I plan around it? And that's when we go kind of into those push seasons a little bit harder.
Yeah. Yeah. There's seasons of hustle.
Yes, 100%. So all right, I'm a mom. I want to start my blog. I am excited, but I don't know like exactly what I want to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about this because we both kind of mentioned at the beginning our sites, like you said, you know, it was finance, but the name like didn't fit. Mine was like lifestyle mom. I was all over the place. This is a question I get a lot. And I actually don't know where like the landscape stands on blogging right now. So I'm curious your opinion about niching in and like all those things of deciding like, how do I take this idea and like decide what I feel like this is a holdup. What do I call my blog? Like I'm so married to the name and people get so stuck on it. I don't know what to exactly talk about. How do we get started there?
So if the name you're married to is available and it's not infringing on someone's copyright or trademark, a quick search of like, it's called Tess. If you Google Tess copyright, you'll be able to find the database. Then go ahead and get it. Okay. If you have to rebrand, change your name 2 years later, that's okay. At that point, hopefully you're making enough money, you can pay someone to do that, because that's a whole thing of links being forwarded and stuff. like just start. Okay. It might be that you don't know exactly your niche and you're going to be niching down. You probably won't start to see a lot of traction because you're so broad. And if you know the niche, great. But if you don't, if you're like Cara, if you're like how I was, then just start writing. You will discover what kind of posts you like to write and what kind of content you like to create. Turns out I don't like doing DIY. I don't remember to take pictures of every step. Turns out, like, not my jam. I love seeing those posts. I admire those bloggers because, like, I attempted and it was terrible. You know, so you're gonna figure out the kinds of content you like to create, and you're gonna start to see the kinds of content that start to pick up steam, whether it's on Pinterest, which is a great place to start if you want to drive traffic, because you have a little more control over unlike Google. So just again, you just have to start. You have to do. Like, done is better than perfect. You will learn so much faster and you will narrow in on your topic faster. And then you can delete that old content because A, you're probably embarrassed by it at that point. And B, like, it's not relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So just start, right? Get it out there. It might be a Mod Podge to begin with, but if you can consistently post, consistent, not constant, for a year, you're good.
Yeah.
Anyone that like drops off before a year, like doesn't make the 1 year mark, they're not going to make it. Yeah. That's what I've consistently seen. If you can do consistently post for a year, maybe it's a little haphazard. Maybe you haven't quite figured out your strategy, but you've been consistent for a year, you'll make it. You'll get there.
Yeah. And I like this imperfect action stuff. I think I used to be a high school teacher and we used to like do this thing when we did English of like example versus non-example. And this is one of the things I find in my business is like, I always try to remind myself the lesson is like, I learned what I liked and what I didn't like. And I think when you get started, the more you do, like I'm the same. I'm like, I don't mind writing about this, but I don't want to take pictures. I don't have time. I do not want to do any of that. So those types of things fell off my plate very easily because I was like, I don't want to do this. And it's okay. Like, I think there's this mix of what Liz saying of like, yes, you keep your 1 year and you go at it, but you try different things along the way, recognizing, but this also doesn't work, right? Like there's this fine line between like, am I trying to make it work versus is it something I actually want to do? And it's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay because it's your business. Like it's your time. There's nothing wrong that you can do by just putting the content out there. And the content is not going to help anyone like stuck up here or on a Google Doc.
Yeah.
100%.
Hit publish.
Yeah.
Done is better than perfect.
100%. So, okay, we've got a freebie for everybody attending the summit, which is the Start Your Blog Challenge. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this will really walk you through the technical aspects of setting up your blog. And I'm not just talking about like buying your hosting, because that's where most of these tutorials stop, but like installing WordPress, setting up a theme, picking out some brand colors, getting your legal pages squared away, setting up your about page, just all the really foundational things you should have when you're starting. And then being like, okay, now start writing tempos, right? Like is it going to be the most gorgeous blog? Probably not. But again, like seriously, go Friday Night Shenanigans Wayback Machine, and you'll be like, wow, she made it? Okay. It'll make you feel better, I promise. So it'll get the basics, the structural foundation that you need, and it walks you through all of that. And then it gives you other resources and links and stuff that I have to help you. And it's not like use this hosting, use it. I'm like, look, this is why I use this one. If you've already gotten something, that's fine. Like you don't need to switch just because I could say a different tool. Like that is a-okay. And maybe you're not WordPress, maybe you're going to do Squarespace, which good on you. There's not as much Squarespace stuff in there, but it'll still help you figure out like the basic pages and things you need. And it just is like step by step, over the shoulder, like on screen tutorials.
Thank you for that. So every attendee can go down. All the links are going to be below if you want to grab that. And if you have your VIP pass, you are going to be able to get access to 1 month of the Blogger Breakthrough Summit membership, which I love. So I'm super excited. If you love summits, which I think you do because you're here, you're going to love this VIP. Liz, tell everybody where people can connect more with you.
Sure. Bloggerbreakthrough.com is the website. I will say I'm not great at social, but if you email me, I will get back to you. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but I will get back to you. So you can shoot me an email, hello@elizabethstapleton.com. And yeah, like that is honestly the best way to get a hold of me because I'm terrible at social.
Yeah, I feel that. All of it's linked below. Thank you for your time, Elizabeth, today. It was so excited to have you at the summit.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.